Welcome to Mommispace. My name is Brianna Bernhard, your hostess, and I am a new mom. I selfishly created this podcast to get some advice and inspiration from the moms in my community who are doing amazing things while raising their families. I've realized motherhood is hard, but knowing I'm not alone in this call makes all the difference, and I hope you feel refreshed as you listen. Welcome to the tribe. Welcome back to Mommispace. I am so excited for today's episode because I have my dearest friend, Melissa Elliott, on the show, and she is not a mom. Yep, not a mom on the Mommispace show today. She and her husband, Tim, have been a huge source of support for my husband and I with becoming parents. Even before we were parents, our whole marriage and everything, they've just been so supportive and encouraging. And recently, Melissa and I were just hanging out and had this incredible conversation that kind of popped up out of nowhere, which is pretty typical for us. And I was so inspired by it and wanted to share it with you guys. I think there's such an important part of our lives as mothers that involve people that aren't mothers, and just knowing how to maintain relationship with people in our lives that don't have kids and that maybe don't want to have kids. So we get into that and a lot of other things. Melissa is an incredible woman with a very unique journey and perspective, and I am so honored to share this conversation with you. So I hope you enjoy. When you found out I was pregnant, what were your feelings?
Well, we found out super early in the morning right at church.
Yeah.
I was really excited for you and Brandon, but because Tim and I don't want to have kids, we were very happy that it wasn't us. That was like our immediate, both of us were like, oh, thank God it's them and not us. And I think I had an idea for some reason, though, that might be happening. I don't remember why
you
now.
had like two dreams.
That's
really
right.
Close
I had
together.
2 dreams, and I thought that it was meant that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
I was happy to find out that it was you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was excited, and it seemed fast, mainly because I think that wasn't necessarily the plan for you guys, but I was excited. And at the same time, I think not necessarily in that moment, but as it went on, there was like fear there too, because of other relationships and what it looked like when they had kids. I don't know. I guess that day even, I think I got emotional and like scared of like, oh, what does that mean for us? But for the most part, it was exciting and another little bug to love, right?
I know. I know. I'm a bug too. Yeah. I mean, I just think we had a conversation, like, it's been like almost a month now, just about, we have this a mom's group at church that is awesome. But it's for moms specifically. And, I don't really know how I would navigate that or change that to include women that don't have kids yet. But I know that you had feelings about that, and we just kind of went on this ramble of like, how would you do that? How would you include people, and the importance of still having people in your life as a mom who don't have kids to kind of keep you, for me at least, keeping me grounded, and to remember that my experiences aren't so unique or aren't so special that I can't connect with people who aren't in the same life stage as me. And so I kind of just want to like talk about that more, and like, I don't know, maybe we can start with
talk about that in general.
Yeah,
I've had that feeling, or like said, maybe not as openly as I have now. It's probably easier that you're a mom than I can say it openly and feel like I can talk about things that might come off really harsh or anti-mom, even though I'm not by any means, because I know that we'll like talk it through. But I mean, for years I've thought that. We've had moms groups multiple times. My sister-in-law did one, and it was always felt really, I mean, when I wasn't married, it was hard, and now being married and not having kids by choice, it's hard sometimes. Not because I don't think moms have a right to get together. I think that's important. Right. There's value there for that for sure. But I also think that it becomes this exclusive club that sucks, because I don't think that while there's things that I can't relate to, obviously, that when it comes to raising a kid that I can't that specifically relate to, I think that if we like break it down far enough, it's all the same struggle.
Totally.
For people, but for sure for women. And so it's always felt super crappy too with this mom's group specifically, because it's like all of my friends that are in it, like, or go to it, right? So it's like weird. I have me and then my roommate, who neither of us have kids, who just don't get to go, and we're all really good friends with each other. And it's not like this mom's group specifically is done in a way that it's not like they're, my understanding, sitting around just talking about their kids, right? They're having art class and they're doing a dance, trying to find things that bring them life and take them what seemed like outside of just the mom role, which is important.
Totally.
But I need things that take me out of just being the wife role, or just a bookkeeper, or just a whatever my Justa is.
Right.
And so it feels crappy. I also don't think, and I said this actually after we talked to one of our pastors, I also don't think that if I came to my church or any organization and said I want to have a group that excludes moms, that would be acceptable.
No.
And so I don't understand the like why it's acceptable one way but not the other.
No, I was like, I don't even remember kind of what brought us to that place. I mean, we always talk about sex together, and somehow ended up...
it all circled around.
Well, mostly because it's just such a, like, for the most part, a taboo subject in the church, and you went before me as far as marriage and sex goes, and it was so nice to, like, have you kind of pave the way for me, and you were very open. Thankfully, your husband was okay with that. He's one of my closest friends, too, so... that helps. It does, for whatever reason, isn't weird, but it's just been so nice, like, having that openness. And so I think we were like talking about something about that. It always ends up going to that place because it's just so nice
right now.
Well, and like, you obviously there's differences in like becoming a mom with your body, different changes, and that's super important to be able to have openness with other moms who have gone through that process. But it's like, sex is sex. Like, there's still going to be things that we can relate on there, but...
Yeah, and I think I've been coming more and more into, like, and this correlates, but there's, it's such a bigger conversation, too, of, like, I think women think they're a lot more special than they are. Now, I don't mean that women aren't special and there's not...
Well, throw in social media and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think, like, too, there's the, like... like, for me, the, like... I don't want to get in a bathing suit because I don't like the way I look, and everyone's going to look at me like nobody...
Yeah.
And I can verbally say this really well. Nobody really cares. Now, that doesn't mean that I walk that out as well as I wish I do. But it's like that kind of thing, or there's the constant like thinking, and maybe men do it. I don't know. I guess I'll have to ask my husband. But it seems like women specifically are constantly thinking like, what are they going to think of me? And how is this coming? Constantly assuming that everyone around them are constantly judging and thinking about what they're doing, and like down to your makeup and thing, like just dumb stuff. And I just don't think that any of us really think about each other that much in that detail.
I know.
And I think I realize my struggle with the moms group thing, or the separation of like just women in general, but using that as the example, is like I always crave deep, real relationship. And so to think that there's a group that's happening that because I don't have a kid, I don't get to be a part of, to have that kind of dynamic with people that I already know I love and care about sucks.
Yeah.
And then I think how sad too, talked about this more recently with, I think, Tim. What about I don't want to have kids, so I'm not offended because I'm great to not have kids and that's fine. Like, but what about if I couldn't? What if it was a deep desire of mine and all I wanted, but I couldn't? I was infertile, or my husband was, or whatever. Or I've had miscarriages and haven't had young kids. And now there's this moms group that I don't get to be a part of with people that I might value or find real good relationship with, but because I am incapable of doing that, I don't get to be a part of it, and I can't imagine the pain. Yeah. And maybe they don't care. Maybe I'm speaking for people that don't really care, but I would imagine if I feel pain for being excluded, how someone who wants that to be able to be included in that group can't be because they don't have a kid under the age of 5.
That's such a good point. I remember asking you that night too, because I was like, that totally makes sense. I think I am so, for one, so lucky that I have you as a friend in this stage of my life, because I can very easily go to, oh, poor me, or like see my situation is super unique. And we're laughing because we talk about Enneagram all the time and because my number and everything. Yeah. But you know, as you were talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I have that frustration in me, probably because I'm so close with you and hear your side of the story and get angry about it because of that. But also, I just remember, and Brandon and I talked about this too, like, when we finally had a kid, like, feeling this new level of respect from everybody, like, people that normally wouldn't give us much in conversation or whatever, were all of a sudden like, hey, you're part of the club kind of thing, which it's not like a bad thing, but it was kind of weird and felt a little bit frustrating. Like, oh, so now I'm validated as like an adult or a human because I had a kid. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great experience and a big deal too, but that felt weird. So then, you know, going into the whole thing with you guys not wanting kids, and I just remember asking, like, okay, so how does that look? How does that work then? Like, how do you do something? How do you do a group? How do you include, like, I don't know. Do you have ideas?
Yeah, you had mentioned, like, well, what does that look like if you open up a mom's group? Still call it a mom's group maybe, but it's open to everyone. And I go. I think that's, like, the example you use. Like, I show up, but all they're talking about is mom stuff, whatever that looks like. Well, how do I not still feel like, well, if we talk about his mom stuff? And there will for sure be that dynamic, I think, and there's grace on both sides there, I think. But I think you brought this up when, like, one of the last times you and I, like, hung out, just you and me, before you had Bobby. We were, like, getting our toes done, and I was sharing how nervous I was and very emotional in the middle of nail salon. It was awful.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, I'm sure it was sweet for you, but I'm like, oh, it was, like, hysterical. But you made a great point, which I had never heard anyone say before, which was, like, that you had the value that I brought was my lack of being a mom, right? Like, that you needed that. Yeah. And I think that, like, from what I've heard, I have a lot of friends that are moms, majority... except for maybe one. Are moms. And the common thread that I feel like I've heard, not to put, like, words in anybody's mouth, is the, like, losing their own identity in their kid, right? Having their identity be about how smart their kid is, how well their kid eats, how funny they, whatever. They're something about their kid, whatever that niche is for them. And then they've lost who they are in that, whatever creative or smart or whatever thing that they feel like, you know, or even whatever, like, gave them joy even, is now completely wrapped up in their kid, which I think is natural and normal to some extent. I think where it might get a little dirty is where you're like, it's your identity is your kid, and that is obviously not probably the best. And I think, I struggle with that too. Now it's not in my kid, it's in my weight, or it's in my job, or it's in my husband, and I'm wrapped up in being his wife, and that, like, I think everybody struggles with that. And so why, like, not just strip the layers back more and realize, like, let's deal with the root of it, which goes back to, like, my just desire to have real relationship and be talking about real stuff, not just... Now, that doesn't mean that, obviously, in those groups, those conversations of, like, oh my God, I can't get my kid potty trained. That's going to happen. And I'm in conversations with that with people all the time. And I have little to nothing to bring to the table other than saying, my sister-in-law did this. I don't know. Because I didn't have to do that, thank God. And hoping that stays true. But I'm fine to have those be in the part of those conversations. It's fun to hear the funny stories about the kids, because I love all, I doesn't say most, but all of my friends' kids. So it's fun to hear the stories and hear where my friends are struggling that stuff, because I care and love them. It's not like I don't ever want to hear that's ridiculous. Right. And that's, I think we talked about that too, is the dynamic of, I think a lot of times to like bag on the, like, non-child friend in a relationship, the expectation is the relationship's going to stay the same. And that if they aren't able to drop everything and do what they used to do or whatever that is, that somehow like the mom in that dynamic has failed and isn't doing right and is focusing on their kid. Well, that is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the priority in that friend's life is going to be their kid, and it should be. Sure, like that is acceptable behavior. Yeah. So it's my job to be able to, as like a person without a kid, come in and say, okay, how does this look differently now? And learn to challenge and say, hey, the kid's 4 and we've never been out alone together. Yeah. That's a different conversation than your kid's 4 weeks old and we've never been out alone together. Like, that's ridiculous. Right. Of course, like, that's fine and normal, but there's a balance on both sides of, hey, how do I still be an individual as a mom? Yeah. And then as a friend of a mom, how do I join in her life now and be relational with her while her baby's around, or be relational with the baby or whatever. Like, there's 2 sides, and I think often the pressure gets put on the mom to figure out how to be the right friend, because her life is the one that's changed. Yeah. But I don't.
That's so good. I'm just thinking about, like, ever since I was young, like, if I would encounter a situation, if I looked up to an older girl or something, and I wasn't treated well or whatever, I'd always remember it and be like, okay, remember how this felt. Make sure you're, you know, aware of this. Once you get to that stage of life, you're going to have people in that same place. And, but I don't think I did very well when it came to friends getting married, because I didn't understand, and I definitely put the weight on the friend. I'm saying mostly marriage, just because that's what I've experienced most so far. Like I've had a couple friends where I'm like, wow, I haven't talked to them in a long time, or would feel offended because I would reach out or not hear back or something, or I just wouldn't reach out at all and just be like, why haven't they reached out to me? Yeah. So then once I got married, I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I don't go there. You were really good about that in the first place too. Like, once you got married and everything. Yeah. And I think, like, thankfully, for the most part, we had bad experiences that we talked about with each other. So then it was like, okay, we both know that we've gone through this. This is a tender place. So we're going into these life stages now. How do we front load it and make sure, like, we're protecting each other or ourselves in that process?
Yeah, and I had lots of relationships that ended after they got married, and I didn't know how to do it when I got in a, like, I dated in high school once, but other than that, I didn't date at all, right? So I didn't have any dynamic of, like, trying to figure out, how do I have a boyfriend? And I just knew, and luckily I got together with someone that didn't care, but I just knew and front-loaded with my significant other, like, hey, this is what life's gonna look like. Like, you're really important to me and you're a priority, but so is Brie. Like, this is like we're, at this point, we're equal. Like, we're not. That's so true. And Tim and I still joke. We said it the other day. I don't know what the joke was, but I said something. I don't know what we were talking about, but I said something like, how do this person not get that, like, Bree's like, I don't know if someone complained to you, and I was like, how do you go and complain? I don't remember what it was. And I just was like, that's so dumb. Like, how do you go? How like, do you not think it's Bree and me, like, and Tim and I made the joke of, like, the only person more important to me, like, that's not, like, other than Tim is, like, Bree. And then Tim made the joke, like, well, and sometimes Bree's more important than me. Like, and I was like, majority of the time, that's the case. And,
we've had the same conversation.
And obviously that is a little over-exaggerated. Yes, my husband is very important to me. Yes. And we got very lucky, both of us, that we married people that liked our friend. Yes. And the spouse. Like, all 4 of us get along really well and enjoy at least to my knowledge. We do, yes. Of course. Enjoy each other's company. Yeah. I was super manipulative and had Brandon live with us before you guys got married, so that could happen. Yeah. Which really could have gone either way, strategy. To be honest.
It could have.
And so I didn't know how to do that, but I did know that I didn't want to do it, and was really clear with my significant other about it, right? Yeah. And I think, and then when Bobby was coming, I didn't know how to do that either. And to be fair, I think I lost more relationships in the marriage thing than I did the baby thing, mainly because I've always been a babysitter and, like, around a lot of kids. I have my nephews, so that one was a little easier transition. When I did lose relationships when kids were born, I never understood it, because I was like, dude, of all people in the world that, like, is willing to, like, sit around while you have to change your baby's diaper or help you. Like, I'm the one. Why are you?
Right.
Like, why am I the one to, like, and I'm not the, like, partier, so it's not like I'm living a life you should be jealous of, like, missing. But I do think the important thing in that regard for, like, the keeping the relationships was, for us anyways, was communicating.
Yeah.
A lot. Like, and we did throughout the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
There hasn't been as much after, but I think we've seen kind of what's happened, and it hasn't been a huge adjustment, really, other than time. Like, we don't have as much time that we used to before. But yeah, it's hard, and I just don't know. Like, I think there's a lack of grace with women and women, and I do it too. Like, I have judgments, and then it becomes something bigger about other things that don't have to do with kids, and then I think that women that don't have kids judge women with kids, and women that don't have, like,
and women that have kids judge women
with kids. Like, it's not just a mom versus mom thing. No. It's just like a woman versus woman thing. Yeah. And one of our friends recently posted a, like, quote, and it was, like, so good and then so humbling for me, because I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm that good at that. And it was like, be the kind of queen that adjusts somebody else's crown without telling everybody else it was crooked or something, was way better than that. And I was like, that's cute. Like, that's really good. Like, I don't know that I'm not good at that. I think I should try to be, but I'm not.
That's really good.
But, like, I think the big one, the one that I mentioned that even brought the conversation on for us, I remember now, was and it's a great example, which is why I bring it up, was the meme that went around, and then I've had someone verbally tell me this too, which is something like, again, I'm going to butcher it, it's, a picture of a tired person, and it's a mom's post-it that says, when you're single or friends without kids say that they're tired, and you, like, just laugh and make fun of them because they don't know what tired is because they have no kid. And I lose my gosh darn mind over that one. I've seen it a couple times, and I could, like I get instantly enraged because it feels so dismissive of other people's lives. And the big one for me, I've talked to my brother about it, and he got really mad when I told him about it one time. And his response to it, in, like, defense of, like, my time as, like, not a mom, was like, oh yeah, let's have any of those moms be a diabetic. Yeah. And let's see how tired their life is.
No kidding.
And I am in no way would ever question how tiring a mom's life is. Yeah. There's a reason I don't want to do it, and that is one of them. So there's no doubt that they have an exhausting life. But to say that I don't, because I only have 5 jobs and a husband and a house to take care of versus also a kid, like, there's a little bit of me that's like, well, why don't you just go do my life for a day and then let's talk.
Right.
Now,
right.
I know I'll be tired after having Bobby for a day, but like, don't tell me that you won't be tired after,
yes.
like.
Well, and it's the whole idea of, like, for the most part, if you're having kids, you're choosing that.
Right. Well, I would argue, this is going to ruffle some feathers. I would argue if you've had a kid, you're choosing that.
Oh.
Because regardless, you've chosen to have sex.
Absolutely.
And so I know that if Tim and I get pregnant, we have chosen to do that because we didn't take extreme measures to make it stop by not having sex.
100%
which sounds crazy, but if we really weren't, if you really wanted to not.
Yeah. It's not in a way to say, like, well, it's your own fault kind of thing. Right. It's more like, it's still like, let's own our choices.
Yes. Even if it was an accident, let's own the choice.
Yeah, exactly. I started thinking about this the other day, about how, like, obviously, like, we're sharing about how we have worked on maintaining relationship through our life stages. We're just lucky that we happen to, like, pair up at the same time. We were both single and whatever, and then we got to kind of walk through it together.
There's a bigger window for me.
Yes, that's true. You walked me through a lot of different...
I just meant you had like 10 years to find my singleness.
Yes, exactly. There's some good stories, man. But I'm just thinking, like, we're just sharing what's worked for us as far as, like, maintaining the relationship, and we're still learning, and I'm sure there'll be many things we have to work through or talk about or whatever. But, like, do you think it would be, I'm thinking it would be, I kind of want to hear your thoughts, like, significant because I'm just thinking, like, a lot of moms, I don't think have single friends still.
Yeah.
Like, and that's hard, because it's like, unless you're in, like, a church community where there's a lot of mixture, it's hard to, like, kind of find that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a significant thing and is important to, like, have that balance. I don't know where I'm going with this, but...
I don't either, but I agree. I mean, I just
think it's important to have single friends.
Well, and I think it's important
or just
to have people
kids.
In different life stages,
yes,
even if it's not a life stage you're ever going to have.
Thank you.
And it's
multi-generational.
Yeah, and it's almost unavoidable to have, like, that's always the circumstance, because even if okay, great example, like, even if I decide to have a kid and we both have kids, we both are married, similar life stages, right? Like, going to be the same, maybe a year or two apart, but there's a layer that I bring that you don't bring, right? I don't have, my dad's passed away.
Yes.
So there's something different and new, and not that I'm special, but it does bring another layer into it that's going to have my dynamic with my kid look different. And it does better, worse, both probably. Yeah. Like, some of it'll be I do something maybe better than you did, and some of it'll be I do it a lot worse.
Yeah.
But it does bring the, like, oh wow, like, let's challenge each other in a really loving way to see, like, past ourselves. I think is what past our kid.
Ultimately, it's just be friends with people and don't judge them.
Right. I mean, that's the short of it. But
so true.
And it's hard to do. Like, I mean, I judge like crazy, and it's hard not to.
I do too.
But I do think that, having relationships that are dynamic is important for anyone. Yeah. So I can imagine, and again, from you and from a few other moms that I know, that, like,
just making sure it's still recording.
That, like, the relationships are important outside of the bubble of your family. Yeah. Because I know a lot of moms who've completely have lost themselves in parenthood and in even their marriages because of parenthood. But then their kids are grown and they don't know their husband. Yeah. And their kids are grown and they don't know what to do with themselves. And then they've now lost the friends, because all their friends were people who had kids, and now they don't want to do the same thing. Like, right. And so, and I think that's just normal, whatever. But I do think that there's a layer that is harder for a mom, like, because it's such an obvious thing that you like can lose yourself in, and, like, it's like to use something I can relate to more, it's like being, like, addicted to food on my end, like the thing that I would struggle with. Well, I have to eat. I can't just cut it out. And you have to take care of your kid. You can't just really not take care of your kid. Yeah. Like, so it's not like it's something that's like, oh, I just won't do that anymore and then I'll be fine. Like, I always wish I would have that kind of addiction, because I was like, I just won't drink anymore. I mean, not that that's easy by any means, but in my head, I'm like, that feels like it would be. Yes. But it's not. But it is a different thing of, like, there is the day-to-day that you do need to maintain. Right. You can't just not care for your kid and take care of yourself.
Right. Well, and it's, like, just touching on, too, like, how it's easy to make anything a god, or and that's why we need relationship and people that'll say, hey, something looks different here, or whatever.
Well, and I think, like, too, you're missing out as a single person, or not single person, but as a person without a kid. It would be such a bummer if I had chosen to not continue to do a relationship with you, right? Like, if I had pulled away, because not only, multiple things, but not only do I miss out on, like, knowing Bobby, which would be a bummer. I mean, I'm assuming she's going to end up being she's already great, but, you know, a great person that I'll want to be friends with. I hope so. But, like, I miss out on seeing you in this new light and seeing, like, just a new part of you, and then, like, how that challenge, like, those
You've
things.
You've seen definitely a new part of me. She was in the room when I gave birth. So.
That's true. I've seen it all at this point.
It's pretty much all open now.
But, like, I think that, and that's shown me new things about me, because I, like, look at that and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I process it, and then it challenges me in ways to process how I would handle, even though I'm not having a kid. So many times Tim and I sit there and I'm like, well, if we had to deal with that, how would we handle that? And we had a friend recently tell a story about how when her and her husband would go out, and she was always supposed to pack the diaper bag. It's like my favorite story. He was really great about changing the kids' diapers, so he'd go and change the diaper in the bathroom. and then he'd come out with
I love this
without a shirt on because he used his shirt as a diaper for. I'm assuming that's a little bit of a hole plug. Otherwise, I don't know why his shirt was off if he wasn't doing that. But I'm assuming he used it as a diaper because she had forgotten to like fill the diaper bag. And this happened multiple times. And we were cracking up, like dying over it. And the person that we were with and were telling it, that the husband that would take his shirt off asked a friend of ours, like, "Oh, are you gonna be good about filling the diaper bag?" And she was like, "I don't know." But then the husband was like, "It doesn't really matter because if that ever happens to me, I will always make sure the diaper bag's filled." So then I went home and talked to Tim about it because he wasn't there, and I was like, "How would you handle that?" Like, and we were cracking up because we both went to. Well, we would just make sure we always had diapers in the car.
Yeah.
Like, we would always make sure the diaper bag was filled, but on top of that, we would always have a supply of diaper bags and all that stuff just in the car. So if it did happen, you just go out to the car. And so it's like we still... And then we get to connect on, like, how cool it is that whatever. Yes. But we would miss some of that if we just decided, well, if you're... And there's very few people out there. More now, but... Oh, hi, Bobby. Very few people out there. There's less people that are going to be married and not have kids than married with kids, right? It's a minority group. Yeah, that's so true. Then we wouldn't have barely any friends.
Yeah, man, it's weird how people just have kids and stuff. And
I agree. They're super cute, but it's a lot of work, you guys.
It is kind of sad because I really want to see what your kids would look like. It would be so cute, man.
That's fair. I was listening
and like super smart and like probably would become president.
I think that they're like the smartness of the two really smart people create a dumb kid.
I don't believe that for a minute at all.
I was listening to Justin Timberlake's album, and the last song is the like Little Man or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called, but it's about like a song obviously for his son. And I was like driving to work listening to it. I listen to like the last 3 songs on the album every day when I go to work. So the last song comes on and I hadn't listened to it for a while. And I got like emotional. It's a good song. And I was like, and there's a scene where they talk about like the dad and the son together. And I got like so sad thinking about like not having that moment with Tim. And so I like told Tim and Tim's like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Nothing. I don't want kids." But there is like, not to like segue the conversation. There is another layer for people who are choosing not to have kids. I think you and I have talked about this. That there's the automatic assumption that there's not still like sadness of things you're missing and fear, and there is judgment here that Tim and I won't ever be as connected as like you and Brandon are now, right? Because you didn't share the I'm pregnant, or you didn't share the a husband and wife like going through the birthing process together is like, I don't know that there's anything that can connect somebody. Like, I mean, there's other things, but like I've seen multiple. I've seen not multiple, I guess I've just seen you and Brandon and then Nate and Carrie do it. And I remember I was really young with Nathan and Carrie at 20 or whatever. And I remember being like, oh my God, like this is the most beautiful thing. Wow. Not the birth, that was gross. Yeah. I mean, it was cool, but it was gross. You people who think it's beautiful are crazy.
I'm so glad I don't get to see it because I probably
You're welcome. You are welcome. Anytime. I'll take that bullet.
She took pictures for the whole thing. Yeah, but really, if I had to watch it,
Tim knows he's not allowed to go into my free folder in my Google because I'm afraid to delete them just in case. My gosh. But there's that moment of like there's that connection and watching that dynamic between like the husband and wife as they're going through something really scary and really painful and that is like just I remember watching it with Nathan and Carrie and being like, oh, this is the most beautiful like the connection. And I've watched them do it twice, and then now you guys, and I've watched other people have kids, but and there's nothing like seeing like that moment between like a husband and wife, like when that's happening. So then there's that fear in someone who's choosing not to have a kid, of like, well, can Tim and I ever be that close then? Like, and that's silly. Like that's not true, and that's definitely like a lie, but there's still that anxiety, or even just feeling like, oh, we're missing those connection moments along the way of picking an aim and finding out that we're
even
pregnant.
Though you've already picked names.
Well, because we are still having sex, so it could still happen.
You're basically the most prepared person who will never have a kid ever.
It's true. It's true.
You probably already have diapers in the car just in case.
Oh, speaking of which, I have something in the car for Bobby.
Oh my god.
Not diapers. But yeah, I think there's that side of it too of like there are people out there that choose not to have kids, and there's an assumption that there's not sadness or pain. So, because you're still missing out on something.
Right.
And yes, we're choosing it, so not to be a victim in it, but like, it's still just like people who have chosen to have kids are missing out on part of life, and there's pain and sadness and like, and oh my gosh, the opposite is true as well. But
that's a really good point.
But I don't know if I have like tips on we just talked. Yeah, there's not a whole like.
That's not really.
It's not anything special we did. No. I think it helps that we had a lot of history before that and went through a lot of hard stuff before that. Yeah. It helps that we lived together for a long 2 years before either of us got married. Helps.
You were my youth leader for a long time.
Yeah, that part. We went to Indonesia together, even though we weren't close then. We do have this like odds stacked for us.
I know.
I think, but But I think like all that stuff helps, but we still chose all of that.
Exactly.
Like I could have chosen to not have a relationship with you while living here, right? Like I could have been like, Josh is way cooler. Like I'm gonna hang out with your brother. Like,
which let's be honest, he's pretty damn cool.
He is pretty cool, and I did make sure I hung out with both of you.
Exactly.
But we did. We put it's time and energy is the reality, and being willing to have embarrassing conversations where you're crying in a nail salon. As you're telling your best friend you're afraid you're gonna lose her. It just is what it is.
Such a good memory.
And it does help that we had people that we lost and so we were really open. So I was more worried about. Well, I guess I wasn't as worried when we got married because we'd already been through been married.
Yeah.
So I think that I was like, okay, no, I know we can do this. And I don't remember being worried when I was getting married.
No.
So I'm sure that worked out for us that it was me first.
Yeah. Probably so. I wouldn't have been as good of a like. Here's what happened. Here's I wouldn't have been as good of a leader, maybe, or open, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have a different model too that I had to work through, like as far as marriage goes, and.
Yeah, my family's very open, so we have different families there. I mean, your family's closer to that now, but growing up, it was a little different. And my family's like the opposite.
Yeah.
Now, they're still not as open about sex as I am.
Right.
So if anybody has any questions.
No, that will be the next episode. Or maybe we even talked about just doing a whole other podcast about, like, talking about sex.
Yep. We could do that.
We need to. I know.
But yeah. All that to say is women should be friends with all women, not just moms.
That's right.
And not just non-moms.
No judging and
I guess is the short of it.
Yes. The end. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure to have you listen in. If you'd like more information about this guest and other guests, you can check that out on Facebook and Instagram at Mommispace. And you can also email me at mommispace@gmail.com if you want more details or have any questions or would just like to get in touch. I'm always looking for new connections. Also, it would mean so much if you could leave us either a rating or review or both on iTunes. This just gets the word out about the show. It's a way that we can get more connected with more mamas out there. And it really helps me out as I am doing this on my own. And sometimes I just need a little lift up, y'all. It's good to hear from you that way. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing week. Remember, you are loved, you are enough, and you are doing your very best. See you next week, Mama.